Okay, I'm now restitching the new flap onto the back pocket main pouch. Threading the needle, I've shown how to do this at length several times. If you have any question about it, refer to the video. I'm doing this in time lapse because I've already done a video where it shows how to thread the needle and install the flap on, and I'm going to use literally the same holes that I used before uh, when I did the other one. And I'm literally going to just restitch it exactly as it was stitched before in the exact same holes. That's what I'm doing right now. It's not unusual to want to replace a flap. Sometimes flaps get torn, sometimes buttons stop working. So knowing how to remove a flap and reinstall a flap and also reinstall buttons is a good process to know how to do, because you'll find it sometimes with bags and other things that you're going to want to know how to fix a bag or a wallet. If nothing else, even if you're not into learning how to pattern draft and do your own do your own projects from scratch, it's nice knowing how to fix something you already have. You spend a lot of money for something and something goes bad, you want to be able to fix it. You don't want to waste $300 or $400 for something just because something got broken, something got torn, the lining wore through, whatever. So stitching is one of the more arduous aspects of creating a project. There's ways around it. You can use a stitching saddle, as they call it, or stitching station. I do have one that I made from scratch, only I did a real bad job of making it, and it's almost more trouble than it's worth. And so I don't use it very often unless I do a lot of stitching. If I have to stitch, like when I stitched the bag that I'm working on, I had to use it because it was just taking forever to do the stitching while holding the project in my hand. Now I show here that these buttons are already in place, and one of the reasons why I have not done the video on the buttons yet is because there's no point in putting the buttons on if you're going to do a lining. So I've held off doing the video on the buttons until you're at the point where you have to decide if you're going to do a lining or not. If you're not going to do a lining, then you put the buttons on, don't worry about it, and then just stitch the sides on. But if you want to do a lining, you have to wait at least on half of the buttons because you'll have to put the lining in place, and it's really a pain to try and put the lining in if you've already put both portions of the buttons in place. That is why I haven't shown the video yet, even though the buttons are technically on this project already. I think that'll be a part of design phase 1, like part 8 or 9, installing the buttons. So here we go. I'm cutting the threading. I'm testing out the pocket to see how it fits. Everything looks good. I'm going to go ahead and burn the threading to make sure that the threading is solid, and you'll notice it does change the color a little bit when you do that. But what I love about this new flap is it carries forth that flag theme all the way through, and it's a nice addition to the piece. A nice functioning flap. Even though I'm not a big fan of doing this back pocket, if it were me, I'd just do a label. It's a nice aesthetic, and it is functional. So there you have it. Thanks for watching. So the next 2 videos in this series, it really depends on whether or not you decide to remove and replace the flap, or if you decide you want to do a lining. If you're not going to do either of those things, then the next step is Design Phase 1, Part 8. This involves installing the buttons, deciding whether you want to stitch the sides or not, and then finishing it up and you're done. Now, when you go to install the buttons, if you're going to stitch sides onto it, then you need to change where the buttonhole goes. If you're not going to stitch sides to it, if you're just going to fold it down and then stitch right where it is, then the buttonholes remain the same. So that's something I will show in the next video, Design Phase 1, Part 8. Otherwise, if you want to do a lining, then it's a little bit different procedure, and you'll proceed to design phase 4, part 1. And that's cutting out the lining material and then dyeing it and prepping it to be sewn. Thank you for watching.